Very familiar with the level of practice. Can you tell me some religious practices, please, quickly?
Sabbath prayer.
Sabbath prayer.
Bible reading.
Bible reading.
Tithe.
Singing. Tithe. Visiting the sick. Not wearing certain clothes. Not going to certain places. Eating certain food. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. Okay? We're all very familiar with the level of practice. And actually, some people live their religion merely at the level of practice. They don't get much beyond that. I've known some people, they will tell you, yes, we do this, we don't do that, and that's the level at which they live. And the level of practice is actually a very important level. It is what I would call the superficial level of religion. I don't mean inconsequential, I mean it lies at the surface. That's what people see first. And so it is the level of witness. Many times people ask you questions about your religion because they saw a practice, and they were curious. And I could tell you lots of stories, but I don't have time to tell any tonight because of other places we have to go. The other thing about the level of practice is that it's the level at which the commitment to your religion is manifested. Okay. The little lady that goes up to the cathedral every day to light a prayer candle, is she more devoted to her religion than the one who just goes on Christmas and Easter or not? That the level of practice is the level at which commitment to religion is measured, not just, whatever else you want to measure. Now, the level of practice is supported by the level of doctrine. And this is very interesting because if I saw you doing something and I said, now look, friend, I don't do that, so what's the story here? You would immediately do what? That's right. You would go down one level to the level of doctrine and you would say, okay, here are the reasons, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See? And everybody who practices a religion has doctrinal information. You might not be a professor of theology, but you can explain to people, well, the reason I do this is this, and this. Right? And the connection between these is very interesting because if the level of doctrine is mushy or weak, what happens to the practice? Yeah, it disappears. It begins to look silly. And we have some examples in Adventism. I'll just throw this one out to you quickly. When I was in academy, if I skipped out of school, I was in a boarding school, if I skipped out of school and went down to a movie theater, bought a ticket, and watched the movie, what would happen to me? Any of you old enough to know? Yeah, I would have suffered some disciplinary action. What happens now? Yeah, we don't talk about going to movies anymore. In fact, we think it's weird that at some time we didn't used to go to movies. Now, have the movies improved? Is that what happened? They've gotten a lot better now, so we don't have to worry about it anymore, right? No. The reason is that the justification for the practice was not substantial. I remember in high school, my Bible teacher said to us, we don't go there because the people who go to movies smoke and drink, and angels don't go into movie theaters. Well, that's profound. Okay. And of course, somebody always tests the taboo. I remember I had some friends who went down to the movie theater and they came back and said, you know what? There's no smoking in there. Okay. And there's no drinking. If you did that, they'd kick you out. Oh, so now what happens to the justification? And then we got to thinking, angels go into lions' dens, but they don't go into movie theaters. Okay, well, that's profound. So, the justification for the practice begins to look silly, and so the practice itself is silly. People say, and of course then television came and we started watching movies in our own homes, and what was completely missing is not the location, it's what are you feeding your mind. And I have to tell you this, I get picked on a little bit at school because I don't know much about movies. I grew up in rural Africa where there was no movies, and I never got into watching movies, and my students pick on me because I don't know about movies. So I challenged them one day in a class. They were picking on me. I said, I'll tell you what, guys. You make a list of movies that you think would be good for my mind and my soul, and I'll watch them all. And guess what happened? Silence. I've never had a list given to me. So, anyway. So the level of doctrine is pretty profound, it's pretty robust. People like Larry Mager and Dave Thomas, we are now living primarily at the level of doctrine because we are the ones who explain doctrine. We argue for it, we preach about it, we teach people about it, we invite people to join on the basis of doctrine. See? And by the way, this works the other way. If the level of doctrine is refreshed, a new practice might emerge. And you see this in times of revival. When you think about early Adventism, a lot of new practices arose because people went back to the Bible and they said, hey, the 7 days of Sabbath. Oh, didn't know that. New practice arose. They read that the original diet was grains, fruits, nuts, and vegetables. They said, okay, well, if that was good enough for Adam and Eve, it's good enough for me. And, you have this whole set of new practices that emerge because the level of doctrine was refreshed and made robust. See? So, very interesting. And I would say that most Christians live at this level right here, between these two levels. Right? Most of us don't know that there's another level called hermeneutics, and we certainly don't know there's a level called presuppositions. Now, what are hermeneutics? Well, hermeneutics are the rules of engagement, so to speak. Hermeneutics are the principles that are derived by various means that allow for the proper production of doctrine. You can't just make doctrine any way you want. You have to have some principles that you operate by. We call these hermeneutical principles, and your pastor and I happened to have been in the seminary at the same time, and he will remember, I think, that in that era, hermeneutics was a hot topic. Because how do you do this properly? And there are still debates going on. We've been arguing about this for 30 years, and there's this theory of hermeneutics and that theory and this other theory, which I'm not going to go in here tonight. Now, what interests me is that below the level of hermeneutics is a level of presuppositions. It is now starting to be called macro-hermeneutics. See? That it's a larger scale than even hermeneutics. And the way this works here is that in one way or another, the elements of religion are distilled from a collection of grand societal narratives. Okay? Behind every culture, behind every religion are a bunch of stories. It's amazing how the most important things in life are embedded in stories. See? And in Christianity we have stories of origin, stories of right and wrong, stories of destiny, stories that tell of evil. And if I asked you, what are some of the great narratives that undergird Christianity, what would you tell me?
Creation.
Yes, you would begin, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. What's another one that you would choose? The birth of Jesus, yeah? Yeah, the calling of Abraham, right? The resurrection. There's all kinds of these. You know these stories. And this is why Bible reading is important, because it has these stories. Now you notice that the Bible is not a book of facts as much as it is a book of stories. See? And so what happens is that we go through these stories and we distill out from the stories the various elements of our religion: practice, doctrine, hermeneutics, and presupposition. See? So understand that behind all of this are stories. Okay, what happened here? Oh yeah. Here's a narrative in picture form. And if you look at this, you see this lovely bucolic scene, this nice little community with all this nice farmland and the mountains in the back. And here you see the dome of the sky, right? And attached to the dome of the sky are all these little stars and the moon and the sun that rides up and down on the inside of the sky. But look down in the corner, what do you see? A curious human being who has managed to get to the edge of the sky, and he has poked his head and shoulders through. And what does he see? Well, he sees the rolling spheres, and he sees a wheel within a wheel, and I don't know what these things are here. You realize that we are all like this gentleman right here. We want to see not only this, we want to see this. Okay? Now, how many of you believe this is an accurate narrative? Any of you see the world this way? No, you don't. You don't believe that. This is actually a naturalistic cosmology. We today would never say there's a dome of the sky with stars stuck on like that, you know. And actually in the Bible you read about a dome of the sky, you read about windows in heaven, windows of heaven, you know. But this is a picture of a narrative. And so whoever lives here in this little village, based on this narrative that's depicted here, they have pulled together a worldview that they use to determine practice, doctrine, hermeneutics, and presupposition. Hopefully presupposition. Now, what happens in our lives is that all of those things we pull together form a grid, and this one I pulled it off the internet. I like this picture, it's a little different, but here we have what I call a belief grid. That the various elements of your religion find lodging in your spiritual capacity, and they form a grid of beliefs and ideas that you use to guide your life. Let me demonstrate that to you. How many of you would be willing to accept from the pastor at the end of the meeting a gift of $500,000 cash, no strings attached? The rest of you are skeptics, right? Now, gentlemen, why did you raise your hand so quickly?
Because I need the money.
You need the money.
I believe you would do it.
You believe he would do it. That's good. That's high level of trouble. Well, you know how you came to that decision is that you took that possibility and you ran it down through the belief grid and you found nothing bad. You don't think it will be bad for you. And so you very quickly. Now, how long did it take to come to that conclusion? Just like that. See? Just quickly. Now, every possibility that comes to us through life, if we're living with integrity, we run it down through our belief grids. And some of these are high order beliefs. Okay? Some of the high order beliefs are so important to us that they are life and death matters. I would rather die than do that. Okay? I would rather die. There are others that are so low level that they are preferences. And, I have several examples. I'll use the one that will make you laugh. I bet all of you have an opinion about whether or not the toilet paper roll should come off the top or the bottom. Right? And if you are real honest, you would also admit that you've been in somebody else's bathroom and fixed it to be the right way. Okay? You've done that. You've done that. Now, why did you do that? Well, because somewhere in life, and you didn't get this from the Bible, by the way, not this one, but so we have all of this assembly of beliefs, mid-level ones, and this belief grid is, in the beginning, it's populated by our parents. Our parents, when you were little, they said, no, you do this, you don't do that. They gave you your belief system. As you grow up through adolescence, you have to adopt it for yourself. And we all know that a good child is the one who ends up with a belief grid very much like the parents, and a bad child is the one that ends up with a belief that's different. Okay? And there have been generational wars about this because every generation has to do an assessment of the belief grid and decide, well, yeah, this is good, this is not good. Right? So, my point here is that, I think I have one more thing. Do I have something else here? Yeah. Understand that the belief grid is protected by something we call a conscience. Right? And what happens in life is that when you have something that comes and you violate one of these principles, your conscience makes a lot of noise. And I think we all know what it means to lie awake at night because conscience won't let you sleep. Right? And we know how to fix a conscience, right? You make amends, you go back and you try and fix it. Or you could change that element in the belief grid. Okay, that might be possible too. And I shared an example. When I was a little boy, I was not supposed to take cookies out of the cookie jar from the kitchen. I remember one occasion doing that and being conscience stricken for quite a while. When I go to my mother's house now, she has a cookie jar, but I don't have any problem if I eat a cookie. My conscience doesn't bother me. So does that mean I destroyed my conscience? No, it means that as an adult I realized that that was not a very high priority in life, if I have a cookie or not, see? My mother was trying to teach me good habits, and I don't eat cookies between meals most of the time, so she did pretty well. So, wrong button. So, having talked about the structure, practice, doctrine, hermeneutics, I want us to get down to the level of foundations, because the level of foundations is very, very important and very little understood. Okay? And what are these foundations? Well, these foundations are starting ideas on which belief systems rest. They are very abstract, they are philosophical. They can be called assumptions or even presuppositions, and some philosophers like to call them postulations. Now, understand that these things are so broad and so far down in the human system of knowing that the evidence for them comes in the form of clues. You cannot prove your presuppositions, you can only adopt them. Okay? So I like to compare them to pilings. If you were going to build a dock, you would go out to the river or to the ocean or whatever, and you would get somebody who can drive pilings, and you would drive them down into the ground. And you know that if you have a good piling and you drive it in until it doesn't go anymore, and you put in however many you want, you can then lace them together with sturdy timbers, and you can put a deck on there, and you can build a house, you can put a crane, you can have a stable platform for many years. Now, did you go down to the bottom of the ocean to see what was underneath it before you drove your piling? No. See, we know that if you do that with a piling, it works. Now, presuppositions are kind of the same way. We don't know what's... I didn't know I had birds flying. I've never seen that before. An active little slide, what do you know? You must have a sophisticated system here. So, you know, knowledge is built the same way, that you have to adopt certain ideas in order to start knowing. This has some interesting implications for doubt. The doubt never leads to knowing. Because if you tell me I doubt proposition A, I will say to you, why do you doubt it?